Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some fundamental issues with snaps that I see. This is continuing on in the discussion and the concerns that I've had regarding Ubuntu and snaps and the ongoing development, because I'd like to make some things clear at the start. First and foremost, Ubuntu is Ubuntu's distribution. They can do with it whatever they want. But I can choose to not recommend it, and that's my decision as well. And I'm not doing it out of spite or because I don't understand. I'm doing it out of some fundamental chief concerns that I have about what's going on in some of the snap world. And the reality is, I love Ubuntu for what it is and for how it has helped so many people find Linux. But the downside is they've moved it so far away from the fundamental philosophies inside of Linux that have caused some issues. So in the latest version of Ubuntu 20.04, which is yet to be released, but I just grabbed yesterday the final beta lock prior to the official release. In this version, they have removed the ability to install app packages from the GUI by default. You can still get that in. We'll have a separate video about that. But what I want to do is I want to spend a lot of time looking at the Snap Store and what they're doing with it and addressing some fundamental concerns. So we're going to head on over here, and this is not going to be any review or anything of the Ubuntu 20.04. For the most part, it's very stable. It reminds me back of 16.04 LTS that was so extensively stable. It was unbelievable. And this has a lot of those elements to it. But it also has a software center that will only allow you to get snap packages from the GUI installer. There is nothing else. And that's a fundamental concern. Now, what is the big deal? This actually goes back about 2 years ago. You're like, why are you digging 2 years in the past? Because it's fundamentally important to understand this. So about 2 years ago, there was some inappropriate code, whether it was I don't think it was a virus. I think it was more of a tracker or something, but it was some malicious code was found in a snap package. And so Snapcraft and Canonical pushed out this blog post in May 15th of 2018. And in this blog post, what they actually did here is they looked at why they're going with snaps and all these types of things. They're talking about some of the fundamental problems, how phone devices like Android and iOS solved some of these problems and stuff like this, which is very good. Now, where I've always had a fundamental problem with this is where we have the issue of trust. And traditionally in the Linux world, what we've been able to do is, as they're putting together the repositories for the operating systems, then what happens is we're able to audit the code. We're able to see things. Now, the argument is, since the very old packages, or the older way of doing it, it's called the traditional way of packaging Linux software, utilize some core software and then a series of dependencies. So the auditors for the code would only have to audit the dependencies once, and then they'd have to audit the code once. Now, this led to a few fundamental issues whereby the software would sometimes not work with one dependency, whereas it would work better with another. And so what snap packages do is they package the most ideal dependencies directly inside the package. The problem is, auditing such a thing now becomes intensive because you're auditing the same dependencies over and over and over again. And that could, in and of itself, prove to be a fundamental problem. So in order to address this, what they did is they actually talked about shifting trust. And when they were looking at doing this, what they actually say down here is that what they did is they had to shift a trust from the code to the developer. And I completely forgot to grab the spot where it was in the article. I actually have it referenced in my other video about it. Man, and I had like perfect notes otherwise. But if we dig down through this, what we end up seeing is we're shifting a trust from the software itself to the developers who packaged the software. It's going to drive me crazy until I find it. So let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so the most inherently complexity of the software means it's impossible for a large-scale repository to accept only software that every individual file has been reviewed. This is what we've talked about. This is true whether the source code is available or not, as in no institution can afford to review hundreds of thousands of incoming source lines of code every day. Because that the most successful trust model is based on the origin of the software, not its content. In other words, we're going to trust the publisher rather than the application itself. Trust the publisher. Now, the question is, who are the publishers of the software? Official snaps from our major publishers. You'll notice that some of these are very reputable. Some of these are not. Many of us who switch to Linux do so for security and privacy reasons. Are we really going to trust Google and Microsoft? Most of us don't. If I wanted to keep trusting Google and Microsoft, I'd just stay on Windows. I wouldn't be bothering with Linux. Spotify, not really. JetBrains, I haven't seen any reason not to. They produce software for productivity type stuff like coding packages, an area I'm not well in. Mozilla's kind of a... These guys are like, yeah, sure, they're a big free and open source company, but man, sometimes they're doing things that just don't make much sense. And so, can we trust them? Probably. KDE, sure, I'll trust KDE. I'll trust KDE and JetBrains on this list. All right, the other ones, I have some issues and some questions and some concerns. And so, this is the problem. So, remember this in mind. This is what needs to be burned in your mind. We are trusting the developer and not the software. We're going to trust who puts this in the store and not the software itself. That's our premise. So with this new software center coming in, and everything in here is a snap. There is nothing in here that's not. So we have some very interesting things to look at off the top. So we have Signal recommended. Signal recommended here is done by Snapcrafters. There's numerous applications that are done by Snapcrafters. Now, Snapcrafters, who is this? Snapcrafters is a list of people. Some of these people are very trustworthy within the world. We have Martin Wimpress, we have Alan Pope, two very high-profile Ubuntu, Ubuntu employees. Canonical, Ubuntu, whatever. Okay. The other one's James Page. I've heard his name out there. So all these guys are people that we can probably trust. Okay. So when they're putting together software, I can look at this and confidently say, okay, they put this together. Maybe I'm okay with that. But it came with a little problem. If we do the Signal app, right? If we go and have a look at Signal, and if we head on over to Signal and we hit the button to get Signal and we download for Linux, we only have one option here. In other words, Signal itself, supposed to be the most trusted software, does not seem to officially recognize the snap package. And I came to the conclusion that that is a very common thing. Now, some of them do. So if I head on over to LibreOffice, for example, which, by the way, LibreOffice is installed, but it's installed through the apt repositories. It's not installed through this. So this one here is by Canonical. Of course, Canonical is the creators of Ubuntu. Now, we also notice this little green check. Why is the Snapcrafters, the Ubuntu employees, not recognized? Now, of course, if we head on over to LibreOffice and we want to go and download LibreOffice, my apologies for using Google, I'm just defaulted this guy out of the box. So if we head on over to download and we want to download it, we can actually see that LibreOffice does officially recognize the snap. So I'd have no problem using LibreOffice's snap in the store. It's verified. It's not developed by LibreOffice, but it's developed by Canonical, and it is officially recognized. All right, we came up with similar things for those of you who need to use Skype. Of course, we were talking earlier about trusting Microsoft or not. And when you head on down here, well, I may not trust Microsoft. If I'm going to use Skype, I would really prefer that Microsoft be the one to package my application. We can see here, Skype is verified. No problem. So if I had to use Skype, I do not have any problem whatsoever using this. Now, if I head on over to Skype's website, I did not check Skype's website. I don't know if they officially recognize the Snap package over there or not. This is actually one of the ones that I did not look for. Let's go ahead and have a look. So we have, oh, there you go. So Skype officially recognizes their Snap package. Okay, that's great. Let's look at another example. So these are all just software packages that I might use on a regular basis. So here is VLC, Videoland. This is the company that makes VLC. And I can't remember if VLC officially recognizes it on their site. I can't remember that one or not. Of course, we have Firefox, which we have a repo version of Firefox. We can download another one through the Snap package. This is officially through Mozilla. No problems whatsoever. Now, let's go ahead, though, and have a look at what one application do you see on your screen that is being used so frequently these days? Oh, if you missed it, it's the Zoom client. So Zoom client is by Oliver Grott. We'll get back to Oliver in a second. Let's head on over to Zoom. If I'm going to go on over to Zoom and I hit a resources, download the Zoom client, and I go to download for Ubuntu, the only thing they recognize is a deb package. Zoom does not recognize the Snap package. Now, who is this gentleman here? Well, this is an Ubuntu employee. If we look this up, we can actually look into him. He's an Ubuntu employee. It raises, though, some fundamental questions. Is this an individual Ubuntu employee working on these Snap packages? This is apparently not official. Zoom doesn't recognize it. It's not on their official website. Oliver, if I didn't do the research to figure out who he is, I wouldn't know he is a Ubuntu employee. So it looks as though what happened is a whole lot of applications that didn't have official Snap builds or didn't have direct working with Canonical or the company wanting to package a Snap. They basically assigned a bunch of Ubuntu employees to go ahead and create what I'm going to call unofficial builds into the system. Now, here's another good one. I mean, we all talk about VPNs, and there is an application called OpenVPN that you can actually use on your system. So if you head on over and get OpenVPN, we have a lot of ways. AWS, Azure, DigitalOcean, Oracle, GCP. If you want to get it down here for Ubuntu, we have repositories. All right. We have manually downloading packages. What do we notice is that OpenVPN does not list the Snap packages anywhere. But let's do this interesting research for OpenVPN. So if we do an OpenVPN look, we have three options here for OpenVPN. We have this guy's option for OpenVPN, whoever this guy is, which apparently doesn't work. We have this one, which looks kind of official, by this guy's, he's like a known security computer guy. If you look him up, like he doesn't seem super fishy, except hacker and activist are two things listed in his nouns or whatever, verbs or whatever that describe him. But that's not an official thing, although it is using their official logos. We have this easy OpenVPN by Canonical, verified by Canonical, the one that looks the most unofficial. Very interesting. Also, though, not recognized by OpenVPN's download page. So that's interesting. Now, there's another application I use a lot, and that is called Simple Screen Recorder. So if I need to just record simple screens and not do something complex like on OBS, I do that. So this is the guy who made Simple Screen Recorder. I will not be able to properly pronounced name, Martin, is it Martin Barrett or whatever? So if you wanted to get your information for how to download this guy here, he has all these various notes. He has Ubuntu. We have in Ubuntu 17 and newer, it's in the official repository, so you can simply install it. There's these. Notice that he says nothing about the snap packages. Okay, there's nothing here about the snap packages. But if I head on over here and look for simple screen recorder, I actually have two things. This one's actually using Martin's original icon. It is very clearly noticed as unofficial from this guy. Okay, we have this one, which is not using his same repo from this guy. Now, if you dig into this deeper, this guy will link back to Martin's GitHub page saying, hey, this is where the source code came from. But apparently this is unofficial. And if you're going into Ubuntu and you want to install Simple Screen Recorder, you're going to get basically unofficial options inside of here. All right, we looked at some of those. Let's look at another one that's on the home screen, OBS. So this is OBS, again, by the Snap Crafters. So we already talked about the Snap Crafters, but let's see what OBS Studio has to say. Head on over to the Open Broadcast Studios. If we head on down to the download button, what we see here is, let's see if I can actually find it. Not sure I'll be able to find it right off the top. The OBS does officially recognize this as an unofficial. I found the list very easily yesterday. Snappy. Okay, so they say it's an unofficial, but you can install it here. So at least OBS, I have more confidence in OBS that it's the Snap Crafters. We already talked about them. I think that they're going to be trustworthy in the scope of what's going on. But at least the OBS website does make reference to this. I want to look at this other one, though. This is neat here. KeePass XC. So of course, password managers, right? So KeePass XC. If you have a look for KeePass, okay, now we do have the KeePass XC here, and we have the KeePass X, this one here. He basically gives us, at least we have a warning up here if you read stuff, written by this guy, saying that, hey, use KeePass XC instead. The KeePass XC one, it's written by Jonathan White, who, by the way, is the official guy behind this. So if you head on over to the KeePass XC website, they will have the official Snap package available. So here's the challenge that I have with these latter two, OBS and KeePass. These are at least recognized by the official companies, but we don't have any blue check verification. Snap Crafters have done a lot of good applications, but we don't have any verification of who they are. And in many of those cases, not all of them, but many of those cases, we don't actually have any understanding of who or what built that, and is it officially recognized? So these are the things that make me wonder, is this current Snap store very much like the old Windows Store? If you guys remember when the Windows Store was first launching, and I had a Windows phone back then, and in my Windows phone, there were all boatload of unofficial software. It was buggy as all get out. It was problematic. You were never sure if you were downloading an official application or an unofficial application. And that's what it seems like to me. So for any company, the big companies that wanted to work with Canonical, they seem to either work with them and develop it, like in the case of Microsoft with Skype, or LibreOffice. Hey, we trust you. Here's the code. We'll officially support it. It's on our website, etc. Completely understand those. But for a lot of your smaller developers, unknown persons who at least are unknown to the regular people who'd be wanting to switch to Linux, we don't have any verifications. We don't have any audits. Remember this that we started with. We're trusting the developer and not the software. My fundamental question is, who are some of these developers? Who are some of these developers? And so I have some fundamental problems that despite most of these applications, not all of them, but most of these applications we just looked at, you can get official audited versions on Ubuntu from the terminal with apt. VLC you can, Firefox you can, LibreOffice you can, Simple Screen Recorder you can, OBS you can, and I think maybe KeyPass XC. But instead, we're being forced to unofficial versions through a Snap store. That is a fundamental problem to me because it starts making it look like this Wild West, like the old Windows Store, forcing this GUI of unofficial software when an underlying terminal of official software is already still available if only you want to use it. That's a fundamental concern that I have. Do you share that concern? Let me know in the comments down below. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Hit me a like or dislike it. Just reminder though, if you're going to be nasty and rude, I'll probably just delete your comments. But hey, if you have something constructive criticism, that's fine. You know, I don't delete comments who disagree with me. It's just if you're rude. So anyway, go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.